Welcome to Kent Hance, the best storyteller in Texas podcast. Chancellor, let's get started. What do you have for us as far as a saying of the day?
Saying of the day is from Mark Twain, and I love this. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that ain't so.
Boy, isn't that true?
And it is. You know for sure something's that way, and it's not. Mm-hmm. And you guessed wrong. And so it's pretty good. Once you see that, you figure out, I bet that's Mark Twain, and you look, and that's exactly who it was.
There's nothing like that feeling when you realize it, too. You're like, oh, I wasn't right about that.
I wasn't right about that. I was off the course on that one. Today, and we record usually on the weekend or something, the news of the two representatives, a state senator and state representative, getting shot and killed in Minnesota is a big item. And, anytime you start killing elected officials because of their views or whatever reason, it hurts democracy. It hurts the republic. It hurts everything. And I feel sure it'll just be a matter of time before they catch the person. But evidently the person was impersonating law enforcement, was dressed like a police officer. Probably that's the reason he got in the house, and he killed the state representative and her husband, and the state senator and his wife were gravely ill and suffering multiple bullet wounds. And this will be solved, in my opinion, pretty fast, in that anything that like this is going to have a magnitude of people, FBI, ATF, the local police, the Department of Public Safety in Minnesota. It's going to have a lot of people looking at it and seeing what caused it and how the guy was able to get by with it and get a car that looked like a police car.
Chancellor, when you were in Congress, United States Congressman, amongst you and your fellow members of Congress, was this a concern? Was this something you worried about?
A little, not much. You had ATF provided security for you if you wanted it. And ATF guy in Lubbock told me, you need to have one of us there at a town hall meeting because someone stands up with a gun, we'd be armed, we'd be able to at least distract them. And so they have for you. Now, the speaker, the minority leader, the majority leader, the majority whip, they all have security. Same over in the U.S. Senate, the senators that are in leadership have security. The rest of them don't unless they get a special threat or something like that. And, you have town hall meetings. Everybody knows where you're going to be at what time. And the ATF guy told me, we need to be there to distract them in case they tried to do something. But I'd have some people that would try to give you a bad time about some vote or something, but no one threatening you. I had a woman chew me out one time about a vote, and she got through, and the crowd was kind of on my side. It was a Saturday, and I was taking off coming to their neighborhood, and she said, I'm sorry I've ruined your day. And I said, look, you didn't ruin my day. There are professional people in Washington that get paid to chew you out. And an amateur like you's not going to bother me. And the crowd clapped. And you ought to be able to answer questions at people. Why did you vote for such and such? Why did you do this?
I have a question for you. You've probably never been asked before. But when you were in Congress and you were done for the day, you're ready to leave your office, do you just walk out to your car like a regular guy does that works? You just
there's a lot of security there, but you just walk out to the parking garage. And when I left Congress, I ran for U.S. Senate and got beaten a runoff. And I got a call from Pat Roberts, who was a congressman at that time, great guy from Kansas, is the only person to serve as chairman of the Ag Committee in the House and chairman of the Ag Committee in the U.S. Senate. And usually you don't get enough seniority in both of them to be chairman. But he called me and said, we're going to miss you. You're a great American. He went on and on bragging on me. He said, who's going to get your parking space? And the truth came out. He wanted my parking space. He's sad I was leaving, but not that sad. He wanted that parking space. And reminds me of another time, Richard Shelby is one of my best friends, senator from Alabama. Shelby, he was a great senator, great House member. We went at the same time. But I picked him up at the airport in Dallas. We were going to do a fundraiser for him. And Phil Graham had announced that he is retiring, and he was chairman of the banking committee. I said, I told Shelby, boy, I just hated that Graham's leaving. And I went on about how bad it was. Phil Graham was leaving. He said, hey, I'll be chairman of the banking committee now. It's not all bad. And so, okay, you look at it a little differently.
Always plotting your next move.
Yeah, see what happens. Mm-hmm. Today, I wanted to talk a little about the what's happening in Israel and Iran. Senators have speculation about different things, and representatives do and everything. But the one thing about Trump, whether you agree or disagree, he'll jump out there and make commitments. And so Biden had done away with the sanctions that we had on Iran and gave them back their money. And they're the poster child for promoting terrorism. And whether it's Hezbollah or Hamas, they're actively involved. And so the president gave them 60 days to try to work something out on their building of a nuclear bomb. And they didn't, and Friday was the 61st day. And that's when Israel, attacked. And, of course, Iran has attacked back. But the Israelis blew up a lot of their plants and facilities where they were enriching uranium for nuclear warheads. And so, it was a big deal, and they were getting close to having a nuclear warhead. And so the Israelis were afraid that, if you wait too long, they'll already have it. Mm-hmm. Then they'll threaten you, and there's nothing you can do without starting a nuclear war. And so they decided to take the chance and bomb them. And they also, locally, they had some of the military leaders of Iran killed. They had bombs go off wherever they were. And so it caught Iran by surprise. They did start firing back with drones and with missiles, and it's a tough situation. I think you have to look at what's the worst case scenarios that might come about. Anyone in business and oil business and stuff like that, they've got to contemplate, what's going to happen. And I think of the worst case scenarios. One might be the U.S. gets dragged into it, and if they kill an American citizen or do something like that, or attack one of our embassies, or attack our soldiers that are there, or one of our Air Force bases in the Middle East, and we get dragged into it, it becomes a real problem. And that President Trump has told them, if you do that, there's going to be hell to pay. You may become a parking lot. And so that we're hoping that the U.S. doesn't get dragged in. The Iranians know that the U.S. had to know. The Israelis not going to do that without telling them what they're doing and clearing it.
So we can get people out of harm's way, too.
Right? And the president late last week called on personnel in Israel, U.S. personnel, to be sent home, non-essential people. And so you had a withdrawal of a lot of people in the Middle East, and that's very important. But, Trump campaigned not to get into an endless war in the Middle East. And so if he does something, I think it would be very dramatic and to the point. Now, he's saying, well, they may have a second chance. They're getting bombed, and they lost some of their leaders and everything. There may be a time for them to come back to the negotiating table and negotiate to slow down. And they can have nuclear energy, but only for electricity and things like that, not for bombs, not for enriching uranium to the point that they can have a nuclear warhead. So of the worst case scenario, the worst one for us is we get dragged into the war. Second one would be if the Gulf states, some of the Gulf states get dragged in, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, different ones. They've all tried to stay away from Iran, and Iraq had the war with them that went on for a long time, and but they're afraid of them. I go back to 1979 when I was first elected to Congress, and that's when the Ayatollahs took over and became the supreme leaders of Iran. And they dictated how people dress, especially how women dress, things like that. They're against any type of freedom, and it's their way or the highway. And so that's a big issue if they get into a position where they attack other countries in that area. Now, they've been big supporters. Iranians have been big supporters of Hezbollah and Hamas. And the Hamas thing, they've come to an end of their row almost because of the fight they started, October 7th, and that the Israelis have not let up on Hamas, and the West Gaza Strip is just devastated because they told them, you're not going to attack our people and kill a bunch of them and not suffer consequences. So they've suffered a lot of consequences, but that's who they voted for. The people in West Gaza, they voted for Hamas to be their leaders, and which was a terrible vote.
When Hamas ran on kill all the Jews.
Yeah, that was their platform.
Right.
Congressman Charlie Wilson said, it's just hard to work out a compromise between groups when you go to one group and say, now, what do y'all want? We want all the people on the other side dead. He said, you can't go back and said, well, how about just half or something like that? And he was a great negotiator. But he said when they start out with ridiculous claims like that, you can't work anything out. Another thing that could be a bad scenario is if Israel fails to destroy the nuclear capability of Iran. But then you've got them really stirred up, really mad, and they're moving forward as fast as possible. The Israelis they have a lot of warheads and everything, but they do not have the bombs that will blow up underground offices and
labs and
research facilities. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. has that, and you don't know if that would ever be used or not. Another scenario that's potentially bad is it sets off a real recession or depression, because this is oil prices jumped up 10% on Friday. Mm-hmm. And this is going to increase oil prices and could increase inflation. And so the potential economic shock will have a big impact. And I think one other thing that could happen is the Iranians, they have a fall of their regime, and their leaders are ousted. You don't know, the next group may be worse. And look at Saddam Hussein and all that we had to deal with those people. That it can certainly get worse, and that those are items that will continue to be widespread. And so in a few weeks, we plan on having one of my friends on, Dr. Tibor Naj, who served as an ambassador to Ethiopia and Nigeria. He headed up our foreign program, foreign students at Texas Tech, and served as a deputy ambassador for all of Africa during the first Trump administration. During that period of time, the deputy ambassador for a continent, all the ambassadors report to that person. And so they're pretty well on top of everything that's happening. We had, on some other items, we had coffee is the number one drink when people were asked, is there a drink that you can't live without? And it's coffee, and that 62% of the public said that their day doesn't start until they've had a cup of coffee. And 53%, they say that's true on coffee, but their favorite drink is a soda. And, I've got friends that get hooked on Diet Cokes or something like that, drink 6 or 7 a day. And, with all that sugar and everything, it's not a good situation for you.
You're a Dr. Pepper guy, right?
If I'm going to drink a soda, it's going to be a regular Dr. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like Dr. Pepper. And my favorite drink is Dr. Pepper to Sonic because of the ice. And there was also a study out, a poll about, and we talk about polls. Last week, Mike Bass-Lees, a great pollster, did a great job and explained polling. And if you haven't listened to it, you ought to go back in the library and look at it and see. But the latest poll had to do with fast food, French fries, who had the best, who had the worst, and everything. And the best was In-N-Out. And they cook them, they peel the potatoes and do everything right there while you're watching. And so they're fresh. They're very fresh French fries. McDonald's, and I like their fries fine, was next to last.
Is that right?
And that kind of surprised me. In the bottom 5, you had McDonald's and Burger King, the 2 largest fast food chains in America. But I always liked their fries, but I don't know who was doing it, but that's that's the way the poll came out. Another part of the survey had to do with the front desk in hotels, and it's just a matter of time where there's not a front desk. There'll be a kiosk, or there'll be some method you just check in. And the other day I was leaving Washington, and I had an email early that morning, and I could check out online and not have to go by the desk or anything. They mailed me a copy. Every place that the business industry can replace someone with a robot or
a kiosk or
whatever, they're doing so, because that kiosk's not going to call in sick or have a sick child or have to go to some event at the kid's school or something like that. And it's kind of like I was in San Francisco for a basketball tournament, the Sweet 16, and they had the Waymo cars, and you don't have to talk to anybody. You just get in the car and take off, and you don't have to tip anybody. There's no tip, and I enjoyed it. Now, I did see in Los Angeles that they'd set a bunch of them on fire, and the people that started the demonstrations in Los Angeles, they were trying to make it impossible for ICE people to arrest illegal aliens that had been charged with and convicted of crimes. They were trying to get them out of jails, and that some were charged with murder and rape, robbery, and all kinds of violent crimes. And they were trying to stop them. And the mayor and the governor didn't do much of a job to try to stop the ones that were trying to stop the progress. And so that's the reason President Trump sent in the National Guard. And they complained about it, and they said that I don't know where this came from, who thought it up, but that he's not the king. We don't have a king. Well, I don't think that he's ever thought that he was the king, or that we've thought that he's the king.
Did you hear President Trump's response to that question this week? They said, what do you say to people that say that you think you're a king? He goes, I don't know. I got to work pretty darn hard to get anything done. King just says they want something. He goes, I got to call Mike Johnson. I got to call Foon. I was like, come on, guys, we got to get this done. He said, I don't feel like a king.
No. We deal with countries all over the world, and I've always said this, that when I was in Congress, that we have methods we go through. We deal with some competitors that make a decision before 9 o'clock and they implement it by noon, and so we got to go through a progress and a process. And so that's, makes it a little more difficult, but it's still the best way to go about it. Also notice that Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys died last weekend. he had a tough life. Everybody think, well, it's highly successful, and everybody, loved his music, and he was a composer and everything. But he suffered from mental illness, and he had dementia for some time, and that he had also had drug addiction problems. He didn't live an easy life.
No.
As a tough life. He could sing and he could compose and write songs. And they sold more songs than the Beatles.
Yeah.
And a lot of people find it hard to believe.
These guys just invented a sound, didn't they?
They did.
That sound didn't exist before that.
The California Dreaming.
Yeah.
And they had, about everything they had was kind of about California. And
cars and girls.
Beach, cars, girls, things like that. But they were very successful.
I believe he was 82, is that
82,
right?
82, yeah. The saying for the day, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't it so. That's Mark Twain.